The sound of laughter echoed across the empty fields, but it wasn't the kind of laughter that brought joy. It was sharp, cruel, the kind that cut deeper than a blade. Emily Carter stood helpless, her wrists bound tightly against the rough bark of an old oak tree. The bullies had done this before, mocked her, humiliated her, but never had they taken it this far. Her eyes stung with tears, but she bit her lip to keep from crying. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She was a farmer's daughter, raised on sweat, soil, and sacrifice. She knew pain, but she also knew how to endure. When the last of their taunts faded and she was left alone in the fading light of the day, Emily looked down at her phone lying in the grass. Her hands trembled as she reached for it with bound wrists, finally managing to press a single contact. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then a voice that instantly steadied her heart. "Emily? What's wrong?" Her lips quivered, but she whispered, "Mark. I need you." Emily's quiet world. Emily wasn't like other women in her town. She didn't crave attention or the spotlight. Her joy came from tending the farm she and Mark had inherited from her late parents. The days were long and hard, feeding chickens, mending fences, planting fields, but the work kept her grounded. To the outside world, she seemed ordinary. Quiet, even timid. She wore simple dresses, drove an old beat-up farm truck, and never had much to say when the women at the diner gossiped. But to Mark, she was everything, his anchor, his reason for fighting in wars far from home. Unfortunately, in small towns, people sometimes mistake quiet for weakness. And for months, a group of locals had decided to make Emily the object of their cruelty. They mocked her clothes, called her farm girl in a tone dripping with contempt, and whispered lies about her when she walked past. She never fought back. That wasn't her way. But deep down, every word left scars. The bullies. The ringleader was Jake Thompson, a man who had grown up with every advantage and never learned humility. His friends followed him like shadows, laughing at every cruel joke he made. To them, tying Emily to a tree wasn't just a prank, it was entertainment. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" Jake sneered as he looped the rope around her wrists that afternoon. "Walking around with that little smile like you're too good for this town. Newsflash, sweetheart, you're nothing." His friends laughed as Emily struggled against the rope. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she held her silence. She thought of Mark, of his steady voice and the way he always told her, strength isn't about shouting. It's about standing tall, even when the world tries to crush you. So she stood tall. Even as they left her there, bruised and humiliated. The call. When Mark answered her call, Emily's composure finally broke. "They tied me to a tree," she whispered, her voice cracking. There was silence on the other end, but she could almost feel his fury through the line. "Where are you?" he asked, calm but firm. "By the old oak at the edge of town." "Stay there." "I'm coming." She wanted to protest. She knew his missions kept him busy, often away for months at a time. But this time, he wasn't going to let distance keep him away. He was her husband. Her protector. And no one hurt Emily Carter without answering to him. Mark's arrival. Hours later, Emily saw headlights cutting through the darkness. Gravel crunched under the weight of his truck as it rolled to a stop. Mark jumped out, his boots heavy against the ground, his broad frame casting a long shadow in the moonlight. He wasn't wearing a uniform, but everything about him screamed authority. The way he moved, the way his eyes scanned the area. It was the presence of a man who had seen battle and lived through fire. He rushed to Emily, his hands steady as he cut the rope. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but tears streamed down her face. "I didn't want to bother you. I know you have bigger battles." Mark pulled her into his chest, holding her tight. "Emily," he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. "There is no bigger battle than protecting you. The confrontation." Mark wasn't the kind of man to let things slide. He could have gone to the sheriff, but he knew justice in small towns didn't always come swiftly. Instead, he decided to face the bullies himself. The next evening, he walked into the bar where Jake and his friends gathered. Conversations hushed the moment he entered. He didn't have to raise his voice, didn't have to throw a punch. His presence alone was enough to demand silence. "You think tying someone defenseless to a tree makes you men?" Mark said, his voice calm but laced with steel. "That's not strength. That's weakness. Strength is standing up for the people who can't fight back. Strength is protecting, not humiliating." Jake scoffed, but the smirk faded quickly when Mark stepped closer. "You don't know me," Mark continued. "But know this: Emily Carter is not alone. She will never be alone. If you so much as look at her wrong again, you'll answer to me. Do you understand?" No one dared speak. Jake's jaw tightened, but he gave a short nod. Mark didn't linger. He turned and walked out, leaving his silence heavy enough to crush them all. Challenges they faced. But life didn't magically improve after that night. Mark's duty often pulled him away again, leaving Emily to run the farm alone. She battled loneliness, exhaustion, and the whispers of neighbors who thought she leaned too heavily on her husband's shadow. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, fearing that one day Mark wouldn't return from his missions. Days when the farm felt too big, too heavy for one woman. And moments when she wondered if kindness truly mattered in a world that could be so cruel. Mark, too, carried his burdens. The battlefield left scars no one could see. He fought not only enemies abroad but also the weight of guilt for leaving Emily behind. Every goodbye felt heavier than the last. But each time he came home, he reminded her and himself that their love was worth every mile, every sacrifice. The turning point. Months later, when one of the bullies, Jake himself, showed up at Emily's farm, she almost didn't recognize him. He looked tired, beaten down. His mother was sick, and he couldn't afford her medicine. He hesitated at her door. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he muttered. "But I need help." Emily could have slammed the door. She could have thrown his cruelty back in his face. But instead, she walked to her pantry, filled a basket with food, and handed him an envelope with what little money she had saved. "After everything I did, why would you help me?" Jake asked, his voice breaking. Emily's eyes softened. "Because hate doesn't heal. But kindness can." That moment didn't just change Jake. It changed the whole town. Word spread, not of cruelty this time, but of compassion. Slowly, the whispers faded. People began to see Emily not as weak, but as someone stronger than any of them had realized. The legacy of strength. Over time, the Carters became more than just a couple living on a quiet farm. They became a symbol of resilience. Mark, with his unwavering protection, and Emily, with her unshakable kindness, showed everyone that strength doesn't always roar, it often whispers. Their story spread far beyond the town, inspiring others to believe that even in a world full of cruelty, kindness can still win. And for Emily, every time she looked at her husband, she remembered that day under the oak tree. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because from that moment on, she knew she was never truly alone. Closing narration, call to action. So, if you were in Emily's place, what would you have done? Would you have forgiven those who hurt you, or turned them away? I want to hear your thoughts, share them in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to my channel, Be Kind Always. Because here, we believe in one truth: kindness is not weakness, it is the greatest strength of all.